Good morning. Who am I? Well, my name's Paul and I am an American. I live in the United States. I live in Texas. I've been living here for 7 years and originally from the United Kingdom, as you can probably tell by my accent. Or some of you may think I'm Australian, apparently. So, my fellow Americans, I want to talk to you about some of the events that have been going on recently and the repercussions. I'm not going to get into the politics of the actual incidents themselves, but about some of the proposals that some people are suggesting about how to go forward. Specifically, defunding the police. So, what does that mean? So, some people have kind of jumped on the bandwagon and gone completely off the deep end and thinking, that's it, we're going to get rid of the police. There's going to be no police force whatsoever, which, from my understanding, is not the case. What they're talking about is trying to reassign resources and take responsibility away from the police for some of the things that they currently try to do. Things like community safety, things like social interventions for marriage guidance counselling when people have fights, for intervening for child problems, for trying to even find children that have gone missing, to liaise with the community in terms of how to establish working relationships within what goes on. So, for example, if there are young people that are hanging around and they don't know what to do with themselves, and investing in projects and things to try to give them something to do rather than just trying to move them on. And I'm actually a big fan of that sort of thing. Why? Because I used to be a police officer. I was a police officer in the United Kingdom for 18 years. I did 5 years as a beat cop, 3 years as what you would think of as a riot cop, and 10 years, kind of 11 years, there was a bit of a crossover as a firearms officer. So I got to kind of be like SWAT, the kind of equivalent. They're not quite the same, but you know, that works. So I have some experience of working as a police officer within communities, both as integrated in the community and also as more of an enforcement officer. And that community partnership works really, really well. So the police officers find themselves untrained, unqualified, unskilled to perform much of the work that they're required to do. So there are calls now to say, you know what, let's just defund the police, we'll hand that all over to civilian organisations, and what they actually mean is, and then we'll leave all the enforcement, all the like hard stuff, like fighting with violent people, arresting people, that will still be the police's role. I think that's a terrible idea. Why? Because there's a couple of things that really should concern you. So firstly, one of the things that keeps police officers engaged with the community is those more mundane tasks, is that human side where they get to interact with the communities that they have to police, and they're able to generate relationships with the people that they're working with in a broad sense, so that if they're having to arrest somebody one week, it may be that the week previously they were helping them at a road traffic accident, or they were at a community meeting where they got to meet them, and it makes the whole thing easier, because you can say, whoa, you know me, I'm just doing my job, we need to get through this. Yeah, you're a good guy or a good girl, we'll get through this as a team, because there is an end result. Someone's done something wrong, they need to be held accountable, so we'll work through it together, rather than just turning up, okay, here we go, we're the enforcement team. So if you take away all those things from the police, all you're left with is the hammer. And if you think the relationship that people have with the police is bad now, think about how bad it will be if all you give the police is the hammer. You don't give them the carrot. So defunding the police and taking all these things away will have very serious repercussions for the relationship that the police has. Also, be careful what you wish for. Community policing is a huge thing in the United Kingdom, and it's, for the most part, a good thing, but it also includes things like very extensive CCTV networks that watch you. I'll give you one example. This is just one. So there's a large motorway, or interstate as you would think of it, that goes around the Greater London area called the M25, and it's a horrible piece of engineering, but it is there. the moment you cross that, as you cross that has cameras all the way around it, and as you cross that, you are constantly on camera. Government-run cameras that watch everything you do with license plate recognition software that can read 6 number plates per second each camera, and they're tracking you constantly, and they have facial recognition, and you can't go anywhere and not be on camera unless you're in a private dwelling. And the argument is, well, if you're not going to do anything wrong, then what's the problem? But I know that Americans have a visceral distrust of that sort of thing. And if you embrace community policing, be prepared to embrace community cameras, community safety cameras. And they also have an enforcement capability, not just watching in case someone does something wrong, but they also will track the speed of your vehicle as you enter the Greater London area. And if your average speed is greater than the speed limit, then you get a ticket. So it's not just flashing you, but with a little radar. They track you constantly when you're going around that at 25. So you have to drive at the speed limit. It sucks. But be careful what you wish for. And these things are run and governed not by the police. These things are run and governed by civilian agencies under community safety. So if you want to hand this over to someone with no discretion, because one of the things that police officers have is they have a thing called discretion. So if they pull you over for speeding, for example, and you pass the attitude test, which is not going, "What are you pulling me over? I wasn't doing anything wrong." If you just say, "I'm sorry, officer, what was I doing? Yep, you've caught me. I apologise. I was just rushing to get A to B." There's a very good chance, not for sure, but there's a good chance that if you pass the attitude test and you admit that you might just get away with a warning. But if you hand that over to a drone that's sat in an office looking at a camera screen, just flicking through images, they will give you a ticket. There's no discretion. You think you have a police state now? All right, be careful what you wish for. So, okay, I think that defunding the police would have repercussions. Be careful. But I also was saying earlier on that I think that those community relations are good, and I do. But this is what I think should happen. And who am I? Well, this is just an option. Just think about it before you rush headlong into something. The police have had their budgets cut. The police have had funding cut. They've been asked to do more with less. So they've already been defunded. I think we should refund the police. I think we should invest in the police. I think we should build partnerships with other agencies. Partnerships, not necessarily train the police to do these jobs, but build relationships where police officers work with psychologists in order to go and to help people with their chronic relationship problems while they keep fighting in their own home. Well, let's fix that rather than keep sending the police in to keep arresting the same people over and over again. Let's go in there and intervene and fix it. Why don't we train the police and get them to work with partner agencies to work with drug intervention programs? The war on drugs, a demonstrable failure, completely useless. The definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. It's been demonstrably shown that purely punitive incarceration measures do nothing to prevent the drug problem in the United States. Why don't we instead work with the police, have drug intervention professionals that are trained in how to do it, have the police work together to intervene with these individuals, to break the cycle of drug use and to break the continuing distribution of drugs within the community that are so harmful, not just for the drug users, not just for the people that have to witness it, but for all the associated crimes that go with it, like the street robberies and the burglaries and all those sorts of things. We can work together to help to prevent this. Get the police the funding that they need to invest in training so they know how to control and restrain people without killing them. Get them to invest in their training so they know how to have appropriate judgment skills when it comes to threat management, so they're not shooting people out of fear but shooting people because it was necessary in the circumstances, because sometimes it will be necessary, as much as we hate to admit it. That's the world that we live in. Don't defund the police. Refund the police. Give them the resources that they need. Invest in them. Build them up. If you knock them down and make them into this narrow, purely enforcement capability, our relationship with the police will go downhill. People will be more distrustful. And we hand over a lot of things that the police currently do to drone-like agencies, then you are encouraging more of a police system, like the state, that a lot of Americans find very, very distasteful. I think there's a better way, and I think we need to have intelligent discussions about it. Well, maybe that's why it won't happen. But wouldn't it be good to have an intelligent discussion about it and figure out ways to fix the problem with the police, to go into the police and give them the tools that they need and the resources and the money, the budgets that they need to train their officers, to build relationships with partner agencies, and to get into the communities that they do love and to help them to gain the trust of the community. Don't drive a wedge between the police and the communities that they're trying to serve. Let's get in there and work out what the problems are from both sides, because both sides need to listen to each other and learn and grow. And we can fix this. This crazy talk of defund the police, get rid of them. I mean, think it through. What do you think is going to happen? I agree, it's with some positive, well-intentioned ideas, but I believe they're flawed, and we as Americans need to address this properly. Don't defund the police, refund the police. Give them more so they can be better. My fellow Americans, my name's Paul. You might not agree with what I say, and that's okay, but I at least would like you to think about it.